The text message lit up the screen. Get up and go. Don't say anything to your son. How did anyone know I was sitting opposite Tyler, his hand resting on the elder care file? The back door was ajar. Wind carried the smell of barbecue from the yard and laughter that didn't belong to my home. That night, I discovered someone had signed my name to something worse than a deed, a fake trust, with me as the prey. My name is Martha Ellington. I am 62 years old, and for 14 years, I have been a widow. This house in Madison, Wisconsin, is my anchor. It is where David and I built everything. I still work part-time, just enough to keep my hands busy and my mind sharp. As a senior tailor at Westwood Atelier, my stitches are precise. My life, until recently, was the same. Then Tyler arrived. He called 6 months ago, his voice strained. Mum, the real estate market is tightening up. They're downsizing the firm. My son, my 36-year-old boy. He asked if his wife, Brianna, and my granddaughter, Lena, she's 8, could stay. Just for 6 months, Mum. Just until I get back on my feet. A mother doesn't say no. I opened the door, and my quiet, ordered life dissolved. At first, it was just noise, the happy chaos of a child. But I held on to the stillness I knew. I'd run my hand over the worn oak of the banister David installed, feel the smooth, cool dip where his hand always rested. I'd sit in his old leather chair in the evenings, the one I refused to reupholster. This house wasn't just wood and plaster, it was a container for my memories. The changes started small. Annoyances. Brianna, all smiles and sharp angles, took over the kitchen. Mom, this layout just isn't functional, she announced one Tuesday, moving my spice rack, the one David built, from the wall near the stove to a dark corner by the pantry. Then the Wi-Fi password changed. Just for security, Mom, she said, tapping her long nails on her phone. Lena has so much school stuff online. Suddenly, I had to ask permission to check my own email. She insisted on a healthy meal plan. I gave her the household grocery money, the same amount I'd used for years, but the refrigerator seemed emptier. The pantry staples dwindled. Yet, Brianna always seemed to have new packages arriving, new outfits for her online vintage shop. That shop. My God. That washing machine. It ran constantly. My water bill, usually predictable, spiked by 30%. Then the electric bill followed. It's just the cost of running a small business from home. Mom, Brianna explained, not looking up from sorting a pile of faded denim. Tyler was a ghost in his own childhood home. He was supposed to be job hunting, but he left late in the morning and returned long after I'd put Lena to bed. He smelled of stale beer and a heavy, sweet perfume that wasn't Brianna's. When I tried to ask about his job search, his eyes darted away. It's tough out there. Mum, the market's brutal. He'd rub the back of his neck, that same nervous habit he'd had since he was 12. But this wasn't the anxiety of a job hunt. It was the anxiety of a lie. My schedule, once my own, was now dictated by theirs. Mum, I have a networking event, Brianna would call out, already halfway out the door at 4 in the afternoon. Lena needs to be picked up. Kids need structure, you know. I became Lena's default caregiver, shuttling her from school to ballet, sitting through homework I didn't understand. I loved Lena, the quiet, watchful parts of her that reminded me of Tyler at that age. But Brianna was never at a networking event. She was always just gone. The house started to feel crowded, suffocating me with their presence and their secrets. Last week, sorting the mail, a task Brianna hadn't yet claimed, I found a thick, glossy envelope addressed to me. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't a catalogue from the fabric suppliers. The return address read, North Lake Trust Advisors. I opened it. Inside, a heavy, cream-coloured brochure invited me to a complimentary legacy and heritage consultation. It spoke of protecting assets, of seamless transitions. I'd never heard of them. Why would they be contacting me? I tossed it onto the kitchen counter, unsettled. Later that evening, Brianna saw it while microwaving a healthy frozen meal for herself. She laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Oh, don't worry about stuff like that. Mum." She picked it up, glanced at it, and tossed it toward the recycling bin. "It's all going to be Tyler's anyway eventually. You don't need to worry about a thing." Her tone was light, dismissive, but her eyes were cold, and they held mine just a second too long. It wasn't reassurance. It felt like a promise. Brianna's dismissive comment about the trust advisors settled like ice in my stomach. I am a tailor. I spend my life looking for imperfections in the weave, and her words were a glaring flaw. I started where I always start, the ledger. I pay my credit card bill on the 15th of every month, always in full. The statement came early, digitally. I clicked it open. There, between my usual small charges for fabric bolts and groceries, was a significant charge I did not recognize. $900, listed as a deposit. The vendor was Premier Home Care Services. I am 62 years old. I walk 3 miles every morning, and I can still thread a needle in low light. I had certainly not requested in-home care. The chill of unease turned to cold. Sharp fear 2 days later. A crisp envelope from my bank arrived. Not a statement, but an alert. Notification of recent high-value transactions. My hands trembled as I tore it open. A cash advance. $4,800, issued against my home equity line of credit. The letter detailed the timeline. The money was deposited into my checking account on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the entire amount was withdrawn. The method of withdrawal. Transfer to new digital wallet. I barely understood what a digital wallet was. I locked my bedroom door and called the bank's fraud department. My voice, when I spoke, was thin. "I am reporting unauthorized transactions." The representative was polite, typing clicks echoing over the line. "Ma'am, I am looking at the account. Our records show these transactions were verified. The transfer was authorized after successfully answering the security questions." "What question?" I demanded. "I cannot repeat the question." "Ma'am." But the answer provided was Barnaby. The air rushed out of me. Barnaby, my childhood beagle, a dog who died before Tyler was even born. David and I had joked about him. I set that security answer 15 years ago, sitting in the study with Tyler, who was patiently helping me set up my first online banking profile. He was the only other person on earth who knew that name. I hung up the phone. The house was silent, but it felt different, hostile. I went downstairs to David's study. His old, heavy metal filing cabinet sat in the corner. I kept it locked. The key was hidden in the false bottom of my sewing box. It was gone. I retrieved the spare, taped behind a loose piece of baseboard molding. My fingers fumbled with the lock. I opened the drawer marked financials, my mortgage documents, David's pension statements, and behind them, a new, thick folder of pale green cardstock. It was not mine. The typed label read, Ellington Trust, Draft. I pulled it out. My name, Martha Ellington, was listed as the grantor. Tyler Ellington was the trustee. Page after page of dense, legal language swam before my eyes. But the intent was brutally clear. It gave him control. Full control of the house, the accounts, everything. On the final page, the signature page, I saw my name. A forgery. A sloppy, desperate imitation of my handwriting. Tucked behind it was a photocopy. A receipt from a mobile notary service. The stamp was faint, but I could read the date. October 3rd. My blood ran cold. October 3rd. That was the day of Lena's fall camping trip with her school. I had driven her. I was 3 hours north at a state park, helping 8-year-olds identify maple leaves. I was not in a suburb 40 miles west, signing away my life. My panic receded, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. The precision of the cutting table. I took out my phone. I laid each document on the floor in the bright morning light. The credit card statement. The bank alert. The false trust. Page by page. The forged signature. The notary receipt. I photographed every single one. I opened my laptop and logged into an email account I had not used in years. My neighbour, June Whitaker, a 65-year-old retired journalist, had insisted I create it. For emergencies. Martha, she had said. For anything you don't want, tracked by family sharing. I composed a new message. I attached every image. I sent it to myself. The evidence was safe now, existing outside these walls. As I clicked send, a sound drifted through the closed study window. Laughter, loud music, the thumping bass vibrating the glass. I looked out. The smell of barbecue smoke, thick and greasy, hit me. Brianna was in my backyard, my yard. She was hosting a party, and I had not been invited. Strangers milled around on the patio David had laid by hand. They held beers, clustered in groups. One man, gesturing expansively toward the house itself, wore a navy blue polo shirt with a small, embroidered logo and a plastic name tag. I squinted to read it. Lakeshore Realty. I shut the curtain, my heart hammering. A real estate agent. The study door opened. I jumped. It was Tyler. He wasn't in his usual rumpled t-shirt. He was wearing a button-down shirt, tucked in. He was holding another sheaf of papers. "Mom," he said. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That old tell. "I was just coming to find you." He held the papers out. "Look, Brianna and I were thinking, you know, just for planning. It's smart. You're not getting any younger." I took the stack from his hand. The title at the top stared back at me. Durable Power of Attorney for Finances and Healthcare. "It just makes things easier, Mum," he mumbled. "Easier for me to take care of you, to pay bills, talk to doctors. You know, just in case." He pushed a pen toward me, his hand shaking slightly. "If you could just sign here, and here, it's just standard stuff." I looked at the signature line. I looked at the son I thought I knew. "I need to read this first. Tyler." "Mum, come on. It's nothing." He pressed, his voice rising. "The lawyer said it's simple." "I need to read it," I repeated, my voice flat. He let out a huff of exasperation. "Fine. Fine. Mom. But we really need to get it done. Just do it soon." He left, pulling the door closed behind him, leaving the papers on David's desk. The laughter from the yard seemed louder now. A cruel joke. I stood there, trapped. The photographs of the forged trust burning in my phone. The demand for my power of attorney sitting on the desk. My phone vibrated in my hand. A text message. An unknown number. Don't sign. Go to the porch now. I slipped the power of attorney papers into my apron pocket and walked, not ran, to the side porch. The barbecue party was in the backyard. This porch, which faced June's house, was empty. The air was thick with the smell of lighter fluid and cheap beer. I waited. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from the same unknown number. I answered, my voice a whisper. Hello? Is this Martha Ellington? The voice was young, female, and terrified. Please, just listen. My name is Ava Pierce. I'm a transaction clerk at Northlake Trust Advisors. Northlake? The glossy brochure. I saw your file. She spoke quickly, the words tumbling out. Your daughter-in-law, Brianna. She brought it in. The signature on the trust document. It looked wrong. It didn't match the one on your driver's license scan. It looked forced. It's a forgery, I said. The words tasted like metal. I thought so. Ava breathed. She's been calling every day, sometimes 3 or 4 times, pushing, demanding we expedite it. She kept asking for a mobile notary, specifically for a late-night appointment. A pause. I heard her take a shaky breath. Mrs. Ellington, I shouldn't be doing this. I could lose my job. But yesterday, I overheard her on the phone in the lobby. She was talking to that man, the one from Lakeshore Realty. She said they had a private listing ready to go. She said the plan was to get the trust finalized tonight and list the house tomorrow, before you knew what was happening. My knees felt weak. I sat on the old wicker chair. Why are you telling me this? My grandmother, Ava said, her voice hardening. My uncle did this to her. Put her in a home, sold her farm. She died thinking her own son hated her. I watched it happen. I can't. I won't watch it happen again. I'm 28 years old, Mrs. Ellington, and I still can't look my uncle in the eye. I have to go. The line clicked dead. I sat there, the music from my own backyard washing over me, a private listing. I stood up, walked off the porch, across the small strip of grass separating our properties, and knocked on June Whittaker's door. June opened it, her reading glasses perched on her nose. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. Martha, what is it? I told her everything. The forged trust. The $4,800 transfer. Barnaby. The call from Ava Pierce. June, ever the journalist, didn't panic. She made notes on a legal pad. Right, she said, her voice crisp. First, you are not staying there tonight. You'll take my guest room. It has a perfect view of your front door. We'll watch them from here. She tapped her pencil. But before you come over, there's one more thing you need to check. The original deed to your house. Do you have it? I returned home an hour later. The party was winding down, the air stale. Tyler and Brianna were in the kitchen, arguing in low, angry hisses about money. I slipped past them, down the hall to the study, using the spare key again. I went straight to the old metal safe hidden behind a false panel in the bookshelf. David and I had kept our most important papers there. My pulse hammered in my ears as I spun the combination lock. Inside, I found my birth certificate. David's honourable discharge papers, our original marriage licence, the old, outdated wills we'd written when Tyler was a baby. But the file marked House Deed was there, and it was too thin. I pulled it out. All that remained was a flimsy, faded photocopy of the original deed. The original, the one with the embossed seal, the one that proved ownership, was gone. They had already taken it. The next day, the house was a war zone of whispers. Brianna, emboldened, had dropped all pretense of affection. "Martha," she said, her voice sharp as she slammed a coffee mug onto the counter. "Did you put the non-stick pan in the dishwasher? I've told you they have to be hand-washed. I need this kitchen to be functional." Not Mom. Martha. It was a line drawn in the sand. I was no longer the matriarch. I was an obstacle. Later. I heard Tyler on his phone in the hallway, his voice agitated. I know. But we can't just throw everything out. She'll notice." He paused, listening. "Look, I get it. The agent said we need to clear out the old stuff to make it look bigger, but we have to do it slowly." The agent. Make it look bigger. The house was already a listing. My home was being staged for sale right under my nose. I went to my room. I packed a small overnight bag with my medication, a change of clothes, and my identification. I did it quietly, methodically, just as June had advised. I was a tailor, measuring, cutting, and stitching a plan. As the sun began to set, painting my bedroom walls in shades of orange and grey, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. It was Ava. "They scheduled the notary. 8:30 tonight. Act like you know nothing." Dinner was a battlefield of silence. The clinking of silverware against my good plates was the only sound. Lena, sensing the tension, just pushed her food around. Tyler put his fork down with a heavy, final sound. "Mum, you've had those papers all day. We need to get them signed." He slid the power of attorney documents across the polished wood of the dining table, the one David and I had bought on our second anniversary. The pen was placed on top. "I told you, Tyler," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I need to have my own lawyer review them." "A lawyer." Brianna laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "A lawyer for what it's a standard form. Martha, we're trying to help you." "I am not signing them tonight." Brianna's face hardened. She stood up, walked to the small speaker in the living room, and turned on loud, throbbing music. The bass vibrated through the floorboards. She returned, her voice raised to be heard over it. "You're being difficult. Mum, you're getting weak. Just sign it and make it easy on everyone? Or do you want Lena to have to watch this constant fighting?" Lena flinched at the word fighting and looked down at her lap, her little shoulders hunching. That, more than anything, ignited a cold fury in me. "Leave Lena out of this," I said, pushing my chair back. "And turn that music off. This is my house." "It's our house now," Brianna snapped, "and we're trying to protect it." I stood to clear my plate. "I'm finished with this conversation." As I moved toward the kitchen, Tyler shot up from his chair. His face was blotchy and red. "No, you're not walking away again. You're going to listen." He moved to block the kitchen doorway. He was bigger than me, his body filling the frame. I tried to step around him. "Tyler, move. Just sign the damn papers. Mum." He yelled, his voice cracking. I pushed past him, or tried to. He shifted, blocking me again, his hands up. I stepped back, unsteady. My foot caught the edge of the dining room rug. I stumbled, thrown off balance. My hip slammed, hard, into the sharp corner of the oak sideboard. The pain was electric, a white-hot shock that stole my breath. I gasped, clutching my side. "Mom!" Lena screamed, a high, terrified wail. She bolted from her chair and ran down the hall to her room, slamming the door. The sound of her small, panicked sobs was worse than the pain in my hip. Tyler just stood there, his hands still raised, his eyes wide with a mixture of anger and shock. He hadn't pushed me, not directly, but he had penned me in. He had caused it. I said nothing. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of my tears. I straightened up, ignoring the throb of pain, and walked past him, down the hall to my own bedroom. I locked the door. I lifted my shirt. A dark, ugly bruise was already blooming on my hip, a violent purple against my pale skin. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. The third text from Ava. "Take meds, ID. One outfit, go now." 8:15. They were coming. I didn't hesitate. My small overnight bag was already packed in the closet. I grabbed it. I put on my flat, practical walking shoes. I looked at the room David and I had shared for 40 years. I would not lose it. I unlocked my door. The house was quiet. The music was off. I heard their low, urgent whispers from the kitchen. They were plotting. They thought I was in here, crying, defeated. I didn't go down the main hall. I slipped into the small sunroom, the one that led to the side porch. The hinges were silent. I oiled them myself every spring. I stepped out into the cool night air. I didn't use the path. I kept to the shadows of the house, then cut across the lawn, into the gap in the tall privacy hedge that separated my property from June's. A small motion light clicked on in her yard, illuminating the path. Her back gate was open, waiting for me. I slipped inside, and she shut it behind me, the latch clicking softly. She didn't hug me. She didn't fuss. She just put a hand on my elbow and guided me into her kitchen. "You're in the guest room," she said quietly. "It faces your house. Come." She led me upstairs. From her window, I had a perfect, dark view of my own front walk. We stood there, in the dim light, watching. June's kitchen timer chimed downstairs. "Tea's steeped," she murmured. As she turned to leave, headlights cut the darkness. A dark sedan pulled up to my curb. 2 people got out. One was a man in a rumpled suit, carrying a clipboard. The appraiser, the other, a woman, carried a heavy, square briefcase, the mobile notary. They walked up my front path, the path David had laid. The front door opened, and Brianna welcomed them in, bathed in the warm light from my foyer. I watched them disappear inside. They were in my house, with my son, actively stealing my life while I watched from a neighbour's window. June returned with a mug of hot, sharp ginger tea. She put it in my hands. On the table by the window, she had placed a fresh legal pad and a pen. From my yard, the party was over, but they had left the string lights on. The small, festive bulbs twinkled on the branches of the apple tree David had planted for Tyler's 5th birthday. They flickered, like a mockery. I took a sip of the hot tea. The pain in my hip was a dull, steady ache. "They think I'm weak," I whispered, my voice shaking, but not from fear, from rage. "They are going to regret this." I did not sleep. At 6 in the morning, June was already dressed, holding a piece of paper with a name and number. Alicia Hart, she said. She's the best. She specializes in financial fraud and elder abuse. She's expecting your call. By 9 a.m., I was sitting in Alicia Hart's sterile, quiet office. She was 50, with sharp eyes and an aura of controlled intensity. There was no sympathy in her gaze, only focus. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted a soldier. "Show me," she said. I forwarded her the email I had sent from June's laptop, the one containing the photographs of the forged trust, the notary receipt, the bank alert for the $4,800, and the credit card charge for the in-home care. She reviewed them on her monitor, her face impassive. She zoomed in on the forged signature, then on the date of the notary receipt. "October 3rd, I said, my voice hoarse. I was chaperoning my granddaughter's camping trip. I have photos, time-stamped, on my phone. I was 100 miles away. "Good," she said, typing. "The notary receipt is from 8:40 p.m., highly irregular. The digital wallet transfer classic structuring." "There's someone else," I said. "A woman inside the trust company. She's the one who warned me." I told her about Ava Pierce. Alicia's fingers stopped. She looked at me for the first time. A whistleblower. That changes things. That moves us from defense to offense. She picked up her phone. Her next 60 minutes were a masterclass in controlled aggression. "This is Alicia Hart," she said into the phone, her voice like steel. "I am filing for an emergency ex parte hearing. I have a client, 62 years old, widow, forged trust documents, fraudulent power of attorney pending, confirmed fraudulent withdrawal of $4,800. We have an inside witness at the trust company confirming the daughter-in-law is attempting to expedite the filing to facilitate an immediate private sale of the primary residence." She listened. "Correct? Imminent and irreparable harm. The appraiser and notary were at the house last night." She hung up and immediately dialed another number. "Yes. I need to file a report with Adult Protective Services, Martha Ellington. I am her counsel." She gave them the address. "There is a minor in the home, Lena Ellington, age 8. We are not alleging physical abuse against the child, but she is a witness to financial exploitation and severe emotional coercion of her grandmother. We need a social worker assigned to monitor the child's welfare during the intervention." "Yes. I'll hold." She covered the receiver. "They will assign a case manager. This is to protect Lena. When we serve the order, we don't want Brianna using her as a shield. We need a neutral party focused only on the child." A name, Ms. Delgado, was confirmed. The moment she hung up with APS, she was dialing the county clerk. "This is Hart. I need to get in front of the duty judge." "Yes, Judge Vance. I have the ex parte filing ready. The risk of asset transfer is not theoretical. It is happening right now." For 2 hours, I sat in her office as she moved heaven and earth. She got Ava Pierce on the phone, explained her rights, and secured an agreement for a sworn, anonymous affidavit to be filed with the court, detailing Brianna's calls and the overheard conversation about the private listing. At 3 in the afternoon, the call came. "Judge Vance has signed it," Alicia said, the first hint of satisfaction entering her voice. "The temporary order is granted, effective immediately. All transactions related to your property are frozen. The forged trust is provisionally nullified, pending the full hearing. Tyler and Brianna are legally barred from accessing your accounts or acting on your behalf." The relief was so sudden, so profound. I nearly collapsed. Alicia wasn't finished. The order is just paper. Now we enforce it. I have coordinated with the local precinct. 2 officers will meet us at the property at 6:30 this evening to serve the order and remove them. Ms. Delgado from APS will meet us there as well, to handle Lena. She turned from her desk and slid a single document toward me. It was a durable power of attorney, a real one. This, she said, gives me the full legal authority to act on your behalf, to claw back the money, to speak for you in court, to change your locks. This is your shield. Read it. I read every word. It gave her the power I had refused to give Tyler. I looked at her, this sharp, brilliant stranger. There is one condition, I said, my hand on the paper. My granddaughter, Lena. She is an innocent. She is to be protected. No one, not even me, is to use her as leverage or put her under emotional duress. Her safety is the priority. Alicia Hart nodded. That is not a condition. Mrs. Ellington. That is the goal. I picked up the pen and signed my name, my true, steady signature. Now, Alicia said, checking her watch. We go get your house back. We pulled up at 6:30 on the dot. The street was quiet, bathed in the grey light of dusk. A patrol car rolled to a stop behind Alicia's sedan. I got out, my hip aching with a dull throb from the night before. Alicia stood beside me, file in hand. Ms. Delgado, a woman with kind eyes and a firm set to her mouth, joined us on the sidewalk. We stood on the public pavement, a clear, safe distance from my own front walk. Music was playing inside my house. I could hear it through the closed door, a low, celebratory beat. Another party. The 2 officers, a man and a woman, were briefed by Alicia. They nodded, their faces professional, and walked up my path. I watched them, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. The lead officer knocked, a hard, official rap. The music stopped. After a moment, the door opened. It was Tyler. He was smiling, a drink in his hand, until he saw the uniforms. His smile dissolved. Tyler Ellington, the officer asked. Yes, what's going on? We are here to serve a temporary restraining order and an ex parte court order. You must step outside. What? That's insane. Brianna's voice. She pushed past Tyler, her face flushed. What is this? This is our house? The officer simply handed her the papers. This is a court order. The legal owner of this property, Martha Ellington, is here. He gestured back to me, standing under the streetlight. This order states she has full, immediate possession. You are required to vacate. Any activity currently taking place must cease. Tyler looked from the paper to me, his face a mask of disbelief. Mum, what did you do? She didn't do anything, Mr. Ellington. Alicia Hart's voice cut through the evening air as she stepped forward, stopping at the bottom of the steps. She responded, This is a court order freezing all assets related to this property. This is ridiculous, Brianna shrieked, waving the papers. She's confused. We were just helping her. She signed the trust, Mom. Tell them. Tell them you signed it? That is my client's signature, Alicia said, her voice lethally calm. She held up her phone, displaying a side-by-side comparison, the screen bright in the twilight. My clear, practiced signature from the power of attorney I gave her, next to the looping, uneven forgery on the trust. And that is the forgery you filed, the one you tried to notarize last night while she was 100 miles away, an event for which we have time-stamped proof. Brianna's face went white. A man in a suit I didn't recognize appeared in the doorway behind them. Brianna? Is there a problem? It was the agent from Lakeshore Realty. The second officer addressed him. Sir, this is a civil matter, but you are all required to leave the premises. I was just invited for a drink, the agent said, his eyes wide. He saw Alicia, recognized a lawyer when he saw one, and his professional veneer cracked. I was just previewing the pocket listing. I should go. He grabbed his coat and fled past the officers, practically running to his car. The notary from the night before wasn't there. They must have been celebrating before the final act. Ms. Delgado moved. While Brianna and Tyler were stunned, she slipped past the officers and into the house. Lena, my name is Ms. Delgado. I'm here to... Her voice was lost, but a moment later she emerged, holding Lena's small hand. My granddaughter was clutching her favorite worn doll. She looked small and terrified. She saw me, her eyes wide, and looked away, confused. It's okay, sweetie, Ms. Delgado murmured, her voice the only gentle thing in the whole scene. We're just going to go sit on Mrs. June's porch next door where it's quiet. Would you like that? Lena just nodded, her gaze fixed on her shoes. Ms. Delgado led her away from the uniforms, away from the anger, to safety. The lead officer turned back to Tyler and Brianna. The order is clear. You have 30 minutes to gather your essential personal items, clothing, medication, computers. You will be escorted. You may schedule a time, through Mrs. Ellington's counsel, to retrieve the rest of your belongings at a later date. 30 minutes? Brianna's voice was venomous. This is illegal. This is our home. Ma'am, the court says it is her home. The officer said, his patient's gone. If you do not comply, you will be in violation of a judicial order, and you will be arrested. We are starting the clock now. They were forced to move. An officer followed each of them inside. I stood on the sidewalk and watched as my son and daughter-in-law, under police supervision, stuffed backpacks and duffel bags. After 27 minutes, they were done. Tyler walked out first, carrying a backpack. Brianna followed, dragging a small rolling suitcase, her face a mask of pure hatred. They were escorted to their car, parked in my driveway. Tyler stopped. He looked across the lawn at me. His face was a terrible mix of shame and raw, childish fury. He looked like he wanted to scream at me, to blame me for his own choices. But he was also a man who had been caught. He said nothing. He just got in the car. Brianna slammed her door. The officers waited until they backed out of the driveway and sped down the street. The house was silent. The patrol car remained. They will stay for a bit, just to ensure they don't return, the female officer told me. Alicia Hart walked up my path and stood in front of me. She held out her hand. In her palm was my original, heavy, brass front door key, which she must have had the officer retrieve. It's done, Mrs. Ellington, she said. I took the key. It was cold in my hand. I walked up the steps, into my foyer. The house was a mess, drink glasses left out, their half-finished celebration. It smelled of Brianna's sharp perfume. I stood in the doorway, the key in my hand, and looked at the life I had built. The house was still my house. The wood, the plaster, the memories. But the trust, the sacred, unspoken trust between a mother and her child, was shattered on the floor. And I knew no lawyer, no court order, could ever piece that back together. The morning after they were removed, a locksmith was at my house by 8. He changed every lock, including the deadbolts, the side porch, and the cellar. By noon, a security technician had installed small, discreet cameras covering my front door and the backyard. I took the few original documents I had left: my birth certificate, David's discharge papers, the faded photocopy of the deed, drove to my bank, and placed them in a new safe deposit box. The house was now a fortress. Alicia Hart did not rest. The temporary order was a shield. Now, she forged the sword. She filed the civil suit. The charges were stark, cold, and precise: financial fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and unlawful detainer following the revocation of permission. We asked for full restitution, all legal fees, and punitive damages. While the suit was being filed, her forensic team was already digging. The $4,800. The digital wallet was anonymous, but the account it funded was not. The money had been funneled, almost immediately, into an online sports betting account. The account holder's name, T. Brenner. Tyler Brenner. My son's middle name, an alias he had used since high school, thinking he was clever. He hadn't just stolen from me to get ahead, he'd stolen to feed an addiction. Ava Pierce, true to her word, provided her internal company emails to Alicia's team, protected by the court order. There it was. In black and white, Brianna's email to the mobile notary service, requesting the 8:30 p.m. home visit, insisting on discretion. And the line that made my stomach clench: "We will ensure a very generous tip for the late-night accommodation." While Alicia built the case, I worked with an independent financial advisor, a sharp woman June recommended. We sat together for hours. We froze my home equity line. We cancelled my credit cards and issued new ones under new numbers. We changed every password, every security question. Barnaby was retired. My new security answers were words only I would know, rooted in my own life, not the one I had shared with my son. We tallied the initial damage, the $4,800 from the cash advance, the $900 home care deposit, and several $100s in smaller, unidentified cash withdrawals from my checking account that I had previously overlooked. Ms. Delgado's report landed on Alicia's desk a few days later. It was clinical and sad. Lena was physically unharmed, as I knew. But the report noted significant signs of anxiety and emotional distress related to household conflict. Lena was afraid of loud noises and arguments. Ms. Delgado's recommendation was firm. Any visitation between Lena and her parents should, for the foreseeable future, be supervised by a state-appointed monitor in a neutral location. Not in my house. Not in whatever small, desperate apartment they had rented. My heart ached for my granddaughter. That weekend, while I awaited the court date, I went to Lena's room. I took down the garish posters Brianna had put up. I painted the walls a soft, calm blue. I bought a new bookshelf and filled it with books I knew she loved. I installed a small projector that scattered quiet, glowing stars across the ceiling. I wasn't promising her a future. I wasn't promising her anything related to her parents. I was just making a space where, if she was allowed to visit, she would know that here, in this room, she was safe. June, seeing the cold fire in my eyes, mobilized. She was a journalist, after all. She called a meeting in her living room. 3 other women from our street came, all widows, all over 60. Matriarchs of Dane County, June called the email chain. One woman told a story about a nephew who'd tried to get her to co-sign a loan. Another spoke of a handyman who had slowly overcharged her for years. We shared resources. We shared Alicia's contact information. We were no longer isolated targets. We were a network. The day before our first hearing, an email arrived, not from Tyler, but from a lawyer I didn't recognize. He identified himself as Tyler's counsel. The email was short. Mr. Ellington deeply regrets the misunderstanding. It read, he proposes an internal negotiation to resolve this matter within the family, to spare everyone the pain of a public hearing. I forwarded it to Alicia without comment. Her reply, which she copied me on, was 3 sentences long. There is no misunderstanding. There is only evidence of felony fraud. We will not be negotiating. We will see you in court. The courtroom was cold, the air thin and stale. I sat next to Alicia, my back straight, my hands folded in my lap. I am a tailor. I know how to sit still for hours. Across the aisle, Tyler and Brianna sat with their lawyer. Tyler stared at his hands. Brianna stared at me, her face a mask of pale, collected fury. Their lawyer stood first. He tried to paint the picture of the confused, frail, elderly woman. Your Honor, he said, his voice slick. Mrs. Ellington is 62 years old. She is, by all accounts, struggling with memory. Isn't it true? Mrs. Ellington, he said, turning to me, that you often feel overwhelmed, that you signed these documents willingly, asking your only son to help you, and have simply forgotten. Alicia was on her feet. Objection. Counsel is badgering, and he is testifying, but if he wishes to discuss the exact moment of that signature, we are prepared to do so. Judge Harper Vance, a woman with eyes that seemed to miss nothing, nodded. Proceed. Ms. Hart. Your Honor, Alicia said, her voice cutting through the room. The defense claims my client signed this trust on October 3rd at approximately 8:40 p.m. I am submitting into evidence my client's cell phone location data and cell tower triangulation for that date. A map flashed onto the monitors. At the precise moment she was allegedly signing this document in a parking lot in West Alice, Mrs. Ellington's phone was pinging a tower 102 miles north of here, at Devil's Lake State Park. Alicia clicked to the next slide. Where? As confirmed by these time-stamped photographs, she was chaperoning her granddaughter's camping trip. Their lawyer sat down. Alicia called the notary to the stand. He looked ill. Sir, she asked, you affixed your seal to this trust. Why did you conduct this official business after hours, in a vehicle, rather than your office? He stammered about client accommodation. An accommodation, Alicia pressed, for which my associate's affidavit confirms Brianna Ellington promised you a very generous tip, a tip to violate your professional standards and backdate a document. He wilted. Then came Ava. Alicia had successfully argued to shield her name from the public record. Her testimony was given to Judge Vance in chambers, but her statement was read into the record. It detailed every frantic call from Brianna, the pressure to expedite, the lies about my health. It was the nail that sealed the forgery. Ms. Delgado was brief and professional. Her report on Lena was heartbreaking. The child exhibits significant anxiety. She is fearful of conflict. Ms. Delgado's recommendation was firm. Lena should not be involved in the proceedings. Her emotional safety was the priority. Judge Vance looked at Tyler. Mr. Ellington, your counsel is arguing fantasy, while Ms. Hart is providing facts. Do you dispute this timeline? Tyler's lawyer stood, but Tyler put a hand on his arm. He stood up slowly. He looked, for the first time in months, like my son. Defeated. No, Your Honor, he said, his voice thick. He wouldn't look at me. I took the money. The $4,800. It was me. The courtroom was silent. I have a gambling problem, he whispered. The T. Brenner account. It's mine. I needed the money. I'm not making excuses. I am asking the court. I'm asking for mandatory treatment. Brianna shot to her feet. He's lying. He's trying to protect me. But it was all him. He was desperate. He was losing everything. He forced me into this. I was just trying to manage his debt. Alicia Hart didn't even blink. She simply addressed the judge. Your Honor, in light of Ms. Ellington's statement, I have one final piece of evidence. This is a recording, legally obtained by Ms. Pierce, who was on a call in a public lobby when Ms. Ellington was speaking nearby. The audio played in the dead quiet room. Brianna's voice, sharp, clear, and unmistakable. Just get her to sign. Once it's signed, we can sell it fast. The old mother won't even notice. We'll be gone before the statements even arrive. Brianna collapsed into her chair. The sound, a strangled sob of rage, not remorse. The lie was broken. Judge Vance looked down, her face a mask of controlled disgust. The findings of this court are immediate, she declared, her voice ringing with authority. This court confirms Martha Ellington's sole and rightful ownership of her property. All purported trusts and powers of attorney presented by the defendants are declared null and void. She fixed her eyes on Brianna. Ms. Ellington, due to your blatant and malicious conduct, this court is issuing a 6-month restraining order. You will stay 500 yards away from Mrs. Ellington and her residence at all times. Then, to Tyler. Mr. Ellington, your confession is the only thing saving you from a criminal referral today. You will enroll in a state-certified gambling addiction program within 48 hours. You are permitted supervised visitation with your daughter, only if you are in full compliance with that program. Any pressure, financial or emotional, placed on your mother or your daughter will result in the immediate revocation of that privilege. Judge Vance looked at me. Mrs. Ellington, your home is secure. The order protecting your assets is effective immediately. We will schedule a hearing for restitution and legal fees for next month. The weekend after the hearing, I went into my backyard. The cheap, plastic string lights were still tangled in the branches of David's apple tree, a mouldy monument to their greed. I took my sewing shears and, with a cold, satisfying snap, I cut them down. I filled 3 large trash bags with the debris of their occupation. The next day, I went to the nursery. I bought flats of hardy, purple heather. I spent the afternoon on my knees, digging my hands into the rich, damp earth, planting them along the fence line. When I was finished, I stood on my back porch. The yard looked like mine again. The house, I felt, could finally breathe. I called my manager at Westwood Atelier. Diane, I said, my voice clearer than it had been in months. I find I have a significant amount of time on my hands. If there are any extra hours, I would welcome them. She didn't miss a beat. Martha, I'm so glad you called. A couture wedding dress just came in, hand-beaded silk, thousands of seed pearls. The client is particular. I need my absolute best tailor. I went in the next morning. The work was intricate, demanding, and exactly what I needed. With every precise stitch, with every tiny pearl I anchored to the silk, I felt my autonomy returning. I was not a victim. I was a master craftsman, and my hands were steady. Lena was allowed to visit, according to the schedule set by Ms. Delgado. The rules were simple. The visits were at my home, and I was forbidden from speaking ill of her parents. I didn't need a court order for that. She was an 8-year-old child, not a confidant. When she arrived, quiet and small, I hugged her. I have a surprise, I told her, and led her to her old room. I had painted it a soft, calm blue. The new bookshelf was full. And, I said, I installed a star projector. We made lasagna that afternoon. We didn't talk about the court. We didn't talk about the anger. We talked about her school and her favorite book, and whether the stars on her ceiling looked real. She was safe. That's all that mattered. June, energized by the victory, was already on a new campaign. She brought over a bottle of wine. It's not just you. Martha, she said, setting her legal pad on my kitchen table. I talked to Sarah at the corner and Mrs. Petroff. They've both had nephews try to help with their finances. She had a name for her new project, the Matriarchs of Dane County, a neighborhood watch, but for financial fraud. We started a phone tree and a shared list of trusted resources, with Alicia Hart's name at the very top. A week later, a letter arrived. The handwriting was Tyler's, messy and familiar. The return address was a gambling addiction treatment center. I opened it with a cold hand, expecting a plea, a demand for money. It was not. It was a short, clumsy letter. He was in a 12-step program. He was, in their language, making a searching and fearless moral inventory. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said he was sorry and that he knew he had a sickness. I read it twice. Then I took a simple postcard from my desk. I am glad you are getting the help you need. I wrote, focus on your recovery. I signed it Mom. It was not forgiveness. It was a boundary. Brianna tried a different approach. The restraining order meant she couldn't come near me, so she sent proxies. Her sister called. Just to see how I was. An old friend of theirs sent me a text message, saying Brianna was devastated and not herself. I did not reply. I forwarded every instance to Alicia, who logged them as attempts to circumvent the court's order. They had no leverage. They had no power here. A small, cream-coloured card arrived in my mail, with a hummingbird on the front. Mrs. Ellington. The note inside read, I just wanted to thank you for doing the right thing. It gave me the courage. I've left Northlake and started a new job at a community bank, a place that actually values its clients. Thank you. It was signed, Ava Pierce. My last piece of business was with Alicia. We won the battle. Martha, she said, now we win the war. She advised me to create a new, ironclad, real trust, one that I controlled completely. But the key, she insisted, was the successor. Not family, she said, her eyes firm. A corporate trustee, a neutral third party who is legally bound to follow your wishes to the letter. We were plugging every loophole, sealing every crack. My legacy would be protected, not by the shifting loyalties of family, but by the cold, clear letter of the law. That night, the house was silent. The air was mine. The smells were of beeswax and old wood. I went to the hall closet, to the very back, and took out the large, framed photograph of David. I had hidden it when they moved in, terrified their carelessness would break it. I carried it to the front hallway and hung it back in its rightful place. David, squinting in the sun on our old boat, his smile wide and real. I put my hand on the glass. I kept our house. David, I whispered. I kept it safe. Brianna, it turned out, was a creature of singular, foolish focus. She thought the restraining order was the only barrier. She didn't understand the asset freeze. 3 weeks after the hearing, Alicia called me. Brianna had approached a different agent, a discount broker from another county. She used that faded photocopy of the deed, claiming she had power of attorney and the original was in probate. She tried to get a quick cash as-is listing, but the moment the broker ran the title search, the freeze order Judge Vance signed lit up the county registry system like a Christmas tree. The registrar's office didn't just reject the filing. They flagged it as a fraudulent attempt to bypass a judicial order. This time, it wasn't a civil matter. The police contacted Alicia. Brianna was invited to the station for questioning. She went, still believing in her own victimhood. She was formally charged with attempted property fraud, forgery, and felony violation of a court order. Her world was finally, irrevocably, collapsing under the weight of her own actions. Our final hearing, the one for restitution, was a different affair. Brianna looked small and haggard, her cheap suit ill-fitting. Tyler, however, stood taller. He looked thin, but his eyes were clear for the first time in years. He had been clean, as confirmed by the treatment center, for 6 months. Alicia was surgical. She presented the invoice from the locksmith, the security camera installation, the fee for the independent financial advisor, the bank statements showing the stolen $4,800 and the fraudulent $900 deposit, and finally, her own legal bill. We request these damages, plus punitive damages for emotional distress, be assigned jointly to both defendants, Alicia concluded, her voice echoing in the quiet room. Tyler's lawyer stood. Your Honor, Mr. Ellington does not contest the amount. He accepts his liability fully. Tyler himself spoke. I accept my share of the debt. Your Honor, I am working 2 jobs now, in a kitchen and as a stock clerk. I request the court allow me a long-term repayment plan. I also ask, his voice wavered but did not break, that the court consider mandatory community service in lieu of any suspended sentence. I want to pay back what I took, not just in money, but in time. Brianna's lawyer tried the only card she had left. Your Honor, my client was manipulated by her husband's addiction. She is a mother, left with nothing, trying to protect her child. A child she used as a pawn, Alicia interjected. And a nothing she tried to fund by committing further fraud after your initial ruling. Judge. Alicia held up a new document. This is an email, recovered from the broker Brianna Ellington tried to defraud last week. May I read it? Judge Vance nodded. Alicia read, I don't care about the inspection. I need a cash buyer. 30-day close. Once the sale is finalized, I'm taking my daughter and disappearing. This town is a dead end. The victim narrative evaporated. Brianna put her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking. But I heard no sobs. Judge Vance was finished. "My previous orders stand," she declared. "Full restitution and all legal fees are awarded to Mrs. Ellington, jointly and severally. Mr. Ellington, your request for a repayment plan and community service is granted, conditional on your continued compliance with your treatment program. You will have a strict redemption path. Ms. Ellington." And her eyes were ice. "The 6-month restraining order is hereby made permanent. You will not come within 500 yards of Martha Ellington or that property. Ever. Violation of this will mean immediate incarceration." I walked out of the courthouse alone, into the clean, cold air. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from a number I no longer recognized, but I knew who it was. The last anonymous message. "It's done. Don't look back." A second message came through immediately. "He was a fool, but she was a predator. You did the right thing. Live your life in peace, Mrs. Ellington." I typed, "Thank you, Ava," but the message failed to send. The number was already disconnected. She was gone. That night, Lena was over. We were making lasagna, my lasagna, the way David always liked it. Her hands were small as she spread the ricotta. "Can we save a piece for tomorrow?" she asked. "We always save a piece for tomorrow," I said. It was a promise of stability. Later, after she was asleep. My new security camera chimed, alerting me to motion at the gate. I looked at the monitor. It was Tyler. He just stood on the sidewalk, beyond the property line, looking at the house. He didn't try to buzz. He just stood there for a long time. Then, he reached over and left a small, white envelope on the pillar by the gate, before turning and walking away into the dark. I went out. My robe pulled tight. I picked it up. Inside, there were 2 things. A cashier's check receipt, the first installment of his court-ordered repayment, and underneath it, a drawing, in crayon, from Lena. A picture of a small house with a big apple tree and 2 figures holding hands. She must have given it to him during their supervised visit. I looked at the check, and I looked at the drawing. I didn't open the gate, but I didn't lock my heart. I went back inside and checked the locks. The house was quiet, safe, and entirely mine. I sat in David's chair, the familiar leather sighing under me. I turned off the porch light. I didn't need to leave it on anymore. The house was no longer waiting for anyone to come home. It was home. I picked up my phone and sent a text message to June. "Are you free on Saturday? I think it's time we do that workshop on asset fraud protection for the matriarchs." The knot was untied. There would be no sequel. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I'm curious. Where in the world are you listening from? Let me know in the comments below so we can connect and share our thoughts. Please, if this story resonated with you, subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, give this video a like, and support us by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.